You sure you can handle that? Corinne's voice, sharp and smug, cut through the sterile hum of the Ethelstan commercial bank. Her pale fingers hovered over a stack of cash, her smile a blade of disdain. Have you ever seen $20,000 weaponized? I have. It's not cinematic. It doesn't soar. It just falls. A stack deliberately dropped, scattering across the floor like a dirty secret laid bare. That was my money, and the black woman kneeling to gather it, in a crisp white blouse and pastel pink mermaid skirt, hair in a low bun with strands brushing her face. That was me, Elara Rhodes. Corinne, the teller, leaned against the counter, arms crossed, smirking. She thought she'd won. She thought tossing my money stripped my dignity. For a fleeting moment she, a mere bank clerk, felt mightier than a tech CEO. Maybe she was right for a second, but she didn't see what I saw kneeling there. Not just bills, but moves, risks, and a path to victory, silent and unshakable. What happens when pride meets power? Will Corinne's arrogance crumble? Stick with this story to find out. Drop a comment. Where are you reading from? And when? Share, subscribe. Let's unravel this together. The glass doors of the Ethelstan commercial bank sighed shut behind Elara Rhodes, sealing her into a world of polished marble and whispered wealth. Her low heels clicked softly, each step a quiet defiance against the cavernous lobby's oppressive grandeur. Her white blouse, crisp and tailored, hugged her frame, while the pastel pink mermaid skirt flowed with elegant restraint, accentuating the rich glow of her dark skin. Her straight black hair, gathered in a low bun, let a few delicate strands graze her cheeks, framing eyes that burned with purpose. As the CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, Elara could have arrived in a power suit, flanked by assistants. Instead, she chose this: simplicity that masked her might, a tribute to humility learned from Mr. Laurent, her late mentor. Tucked in her leather satchel was her mission: $20,000 in cash, a gift to ease the burdens of his struggling family. The bank's air was heavy, scented with wax and ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast cold light across mahogany counters, where tellers typed with mechanical precision behind bulletproof glass. Men in tailored suits and women in sleek dresses moved with practiced ease, their glances sharp and assessing. Elara felt their eyes, brief, dismissive, lingering on her unassuming attire before sliding away. She was an anomaly here, a puzzle they couldn't place. To them, her blouse and skirt signaled ordinariness, not the boardroom titan who could shift markets with a single call. She straightened, her chin lifting slightly, and walked toward the nearest teller station. Behind the counter stood Corinne, her name tag glinting like a badge of authority. Her pale face was a mask of professional courtesy, but her blue eyes betrayed a flicker of contempt as they swept over Elara. "What do you need today?" Corinne asked, her voice a blade wrapped in silk, slicing through the hum of the lobby. The question wasn't an offer, it was a challenge. "I'd like to withdraw $20,000 in cash," Elara said, her tone steady, warm but unyielding. She slid her ID and account details across the counter, her fingers brushing the cool wood. The satchel at her side felt heavier, not with the promise of money, but with the weight of Laurent's memory. His gentle voice urging her to rise above, to act with grace. This wasn't just a transaction, it was a vow. Corinne's lips pursed, her manicured nails tapping the documents as if testing their authenticity. 20,000, she repeated, her voice louder than necessary, drawing the attention of a nearby couple in designer coats. "That's quite a sum. Are you sure your account can handle that?" Her smile was thin, a veneer of politeness that didn't reach her eyes. The couple whispered, their heads tilting toward Elara. A man in a pinstripe suit, Silas Kensington, a name Elara recognized from investor circles, paused near a marble pillar, his sharp gaze catching the exchange. "I'm certain," Elara replied, her smile unwavering but edged with steel. "Please process it." She held Corinne's gaze, refusing to flinch under the scrutiny. The teller's eyes narrowed, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before she masked it with a nod. She turned to her computer, her fingers dancing across the keys with exaggerated slowness, each click a deliberate taunt. The lobby's murmur grew, a subtle shift in the air. A security guard in a Navy uniform shifted his weight, his hand resting near his radio, watching the scene unfold. Customers glanced over, their curiosity cloaked in feigned indifference. Elara stood tall, her posture a quiet command. But inside, a spark of irritation flared. She'd faced rooms full of skeptics, board members, competitors, journalists. Yet this moment, in a bank of all places, stung differently. It wasn't just Corinne's words. It was the assumption behind them, the unspoken judgment that her clothes, her presence, didn't belong. Corinne vanished into a back room, leaving Elara under the weight of a dozen stares. She adjusted her satchel, her fingers brushing the leather, grounding herself. Laurent's words echoed, "Dignity is your armor." She wouldn't let this woman, this place, unravel her. The screen above the counter flickered, and for a moment, Elara caught a glimpse of her account balance, a number that could silence every whisper in this room. She suppressed a smile, her resolve hardening. When Corinne returned, she carried a stack of $100 bills, crisp and bound, the weight of them almost tangible. She set it on the counter with a deliberate thud, her eyes locked on Elara's. "Here's your money," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Be careful with it. Not everyone's used to handling this much cash." The words landed like a slap, and the lobby seemed to hold its breath. Silas Kensington's jaw tightened, his fingers curling around his briefcase. The guard shifted again, his eyes darting between the women. Elara's hand hovered over the stack, her gaze steady. "Thank you," she said, her voice a quiet blade, cutting through the tension. She began to slide the bills toward her satchel, each movement deliberate, her strands of hair catching the light. Corinne's smirk widened, her fingers twitching as if itching to escalate. The air crackled, a storm brewing in the silence. Elara's heart beat steadily, but her mind raced, not with anger, but with clarity. This moment was more than a transaction. It was the opening move in a game Corinne didn't yet know she was playing. Elara Rhodes' fingers brushed the stack of $100 bills, their crisp edges cool against her skin. The Ethelstan Commercial Bank's lobby seemed to contract, the air thick with anticipation, as if the marble walls themselves leaned in to watch. Corinne, the teller, stood behind the counter, her pale arms crossed, her smirk a jagged line of triumph. Her blue eyes glinted with malice, daring Elara to falter. The $20,000, bound tightly in its paper band, sat between them like a loaded weapon. Elara's white blouse gleamed under the chandelier's glare, her pastel pink mermaid skirt a quiet elegance against the storm brewing in her chest. A loose strand of hair grazed her cheek, but her gaze remained locked on Corinne's, unflinching, a silent vow that she would not break. "Thank you," Elara repeated, her voice a low, steady current, cutting through the charged silence. She began to slide the stack toward her satchel, each movement deliberate, as if handling something sacred. Corinne's fingers twitched, hovering near the bills, her smirk widening into something predatory. Then with a flick of her wrist, so subtle it might have been an accident, but Elara knew better, the teller let the stack slip. The bills tumbled from the counter, bursting free of their band, fluttering to the marble floor like wounded birds. The sound of falling paper echoed, sharp and final, a cascade of green against the cold stone. "Oh my goodness, you dropped it!" Corinne gasped, her voice loud, theatrical, dripping with mock surprise. She leaned forward, her arms still crossed, her smile now a blade. "Be more careful next time." The words were a taunt, a public branding of Elara as careless, unworthy. The lobby froze. Customers in their tailored suits and sleek dresses turned, their whispers sharp as glass. Silas Kensington, the investor in the pinstripe suit, gripped his briefcase tighter, his jaw a hard line. The security guard, his navy uniform stiff, shifted uncomfortably, his hand hovering near his radio, caught in the moment's gravity. Elara's breath caught, a spark of fury flaring in her chest. She could feel every eye in the room, judging, waiting for her to crumble. Corinne thought this was her victory, that she'd stripped Elara's dignity with a single careless gesture. For a fleeting second, the weight of those stares pressed against her, heavy as the marble beneath her feet. But then she heard Mr. Laurent's voice, soft and steady in her memory. "Dignity is your armor." She would not give Corinne the satisfaction of a crack in her composure. With a grace that silenced the room, Ilara knelt. Her skirt pulled around her, the pastel pink fabric a stark contrast against the floor's chill. She gathered the bills one by one, her movements slow, almost reverent, as if each note carried the weight of her purpose. Her dark skin glowed under the chandelier's light, her low bun holding firm, though a loose strand fell across her face. She didn't brush it away. Instead, she let it hang, a quiet defiance, as her fingers worked with precision. The crowd watched, transfixed, their whispers fading into an uneasy hush. Silas Kensington's eyes narrowed, a flicker of admiration cutting through his anger. The guard's hand dropped from his radio, his shoulders slumping as if in awe. Corinne's smirk faltered, her confidence cracking like thin ice. She shifted, her arms uncrossing, her fingers fidgeting against the counter. She hadn't expected this. Ilara's calm, her refusal to rise to the bait. The teller opened her mouth, perhaps to speak, but no words came. The power she'd felt moments ago was slipping, evaporating in the face of Ilara's unyielding poise. Ilara rose, the stack of bills neatly reformed in her hands. She placed it in her satchel, her movements deliberate, her eyes never leaving Corinne's. "Thank you for your assistance," she said, her voice calm but laced with an edge that cut deeper than any shout. The words hung in the air, a polite dismissal that carried the weight of a challenge. She turned, her heels clicking softly, and walked toward the glass doors. The crowd parted, their gazes a mix of shame and curiosity. Silas Kensington watched her go, his mind already spinning with calculations, a phone call forming in his thoughts. As the doors sighed open, Ilara stepped into the sunlight, her satchel heavy with more than money. The fire in her chest hadn't dimmed. It had sharpened, honed into something precise. Corinne had thought to humiliate her, to reduce a CEO to a spectacle. But in kneeling, Ilara had seen something Corinne couldn't. A chessboard, each move clear and deliberate. This wasn't the end. It was the opening gambit. She slid into her car, her hands steady on the wheel, and let out a slow breath. The bank's shadow loomed behind her, but she was already looking ahead, to a game she knew she'd win. Ilara Rhodes sank into the leather seat of her car, the satchel heavy in her lap, its contents $20,000 in crisp bills, a reminder of both her purpose and the ordeal she'd just endured. The glass doors of the Ethelstan Commercial Bank loomed in her rearview mirror, their gleam a cold echo of the lobby's judgment. Her white blouse clung slightly to her skin, warmed by the sunlight streaming through the windshield, while her pastel pink mermaid skirt shifted as she gripped the steering wheel. A loose strand of hair fell across her cheek, but she didn't brush it away. Her dark eyes stared ahead, unseeing, as her breath slowed, each exhale a deliberate effort to cage the fire in her chest. Corinne's smirk, the scattered bills, the weight of a dozen stares, they replayed in her mind, sharp as glass. But Mr. Lawrence's voice cut through. "Dignity is your armor." She wouldn't let anger win. Not yet. Inside the bank, the air still buzzed with the aftermath of Ilara's exit. Customers resumed their transactions, but their whispers lingered, laced with unease. Silas Kensington stood near a marble pillar, his pinstripe suit immaculate, his briefcase a silent partner in his calculations. His sharp gray eyes, usually reserved for boardroom battles, now burned with a different fire. He'd seen Ilara's poise, the way she'd turned Corinne's cruelty into a quiet triumph. It wasn't just personal, it was a symptom of a deeper rot. He pulled out his phone, his fingers steady as he dialed a number a few dared to call. "This is Kensington," he said, his voice low, cutting. "I want a full investigation into the Ethelstan branch. Now." The person on the other end stammered, but Silas didn't wait for excuses. He hung up, his mind already mapping the consequences. A bank that disrespected Ilara Rhodes was a liability, one he wouldn't tolerate. At the teller counter, Thea Marshall stood frozen, her hands trembling as she sorted paperwork to steady herself. Her navy uniform felt too tight, the name tag pinning her to a role she suddenly questioned. She'd watched it all, Corinne's taunt, the falling bills, Ilara's grace under fire. Thea's heart pounded, a mix of awe and guilt. She'd seen Corinne's arrogance before, her subtle jabs at customers, who didn't fit her narrow view of wealth. But this was different. Elara, with her radiant dark skin and understated elegance, hadn't just endured. She'd transformed the moment into something powerful. Thea's eyes flicked to the security camera above, its red light blinking like a silent witness. The footage was there, a record of truth. But acting on it meant risking everything: her job, her stability, the fragile life she'd built. Thea glanced at Corinne, who was now chatting with another teller, her laughter sharp and careless, as if nothing had happened. The sound grated, a reminder of the injustice Thea had witnessed. She thought of her own struggles: late-night shifts, a landlord's threats, dreams of college deferred. Doing nothing was safe, but it felt like a betrayal. Elara's calm strength lingered in her mind, a challenge to be more. Thea's fingers brushed the keyboard, her breath catching. The security system was accessible from her terminal, a perk of her training. She could copy the footage, send it anonymously. But what if they traced it back? Her pulse raced, her palms slick. She thought of her mother's advice. Right isn't always easy. With a shaky breath, she logged in, her fingers moving before her fear could stop her. The video file downloaded to a USB, each second a step toward courage she hadn't known she possessed. Outside, Elara started the car, the engine's hum grounding her. She adjusted her satchel, the weight of the cash a tether to her purpose, helping Mr. Lawrence's family, honoring his legacy. But Corinne's actions had shifted something deeper. This wasn't just about her. It was about a system that let someone like Corinne wield power so carelessly. Elara's mind raced, not with vengeance, but with strategy. She knew Silas Kensington's reputation: ruthless, calculating, a man who saw liabilities where others saw people. If he was watching, and she knew he was, this was only the beginning. Her phone buzzed, a notification she ignored for now. She needed clarity, a moment to align her heart with her next move. Back in the bank, Thea slipped the USB into her pocket, her heart thudding so loudly she feared Corinne would hear it. She glanced at her colleague, who was now busy with a customer, oblivious to the shift in Thea's world. The footage was her secret, a spark that could ignite change or burn her down. She straightened, her navy uniform no longer a cage but a choice. She didn't know Elara Rhodes, didn't know the weight of her name, but she knew right from wrong, and for the first time, she felt the power of choosing the former. Elara drove away, the bank shrinking in her mirror. The fire in her chest had settled into a steady glow, not of anger, but of purpose. Corinne had played her hand, but Elara saw the board now: moves, risks, and a path forward. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Elara Rhodes' car hummed through the city, the satchel on the passenger seat a quiet reminder of her mission and the battle she'd just fought. Her white blouse, still crisp despite the morning's ordeal, caught the sunlight, while her pastel pink mermaid skirt shifted slightly as she navigated traffic. A loose strand of hair brushed her cheek, but her dark eyes were fixed on the road, her mind racing far beyond the asphalt. The Ethelstan Commercial Bank's marble walls and Corinne's smirk lingered like a bitter aftertaste. But Elara's anger had distilled into something sharper: clarity. This wasn't just about her dignity. It was about a system that allowed such arrogance to fester. She tightened her grip on the wheel, Mr. Lawrence's words echoing: "Dignity is your armor, but strategy is your sword." She was ready to wield it. Her phone buzzed again, insistent. She glanced at the screen. Silas Kensington. She pulled into a quiet lot, her heart steady as she answered. "Elara," Silas's voice crackled. "All business, no pleasantries. That bank is a liability. Their culture's rotten. Today proved it. We can't trust them with the $2 billion deal." His tone was cold, analytical, the voice of a man who saw the world as a ledger of risks and rewards. Elara nodded, though he couldn't see her. "I agree," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "It's not just personal. It's systemic." Silas grunted, a rare hint of approval. "I've started the wheels turning, but you need to see something. Check your email." Elara opened her laptop, her fingers swift. An anonymous email waited, no subject, just an attachment, a video file. Her breath caught as she played it, The bank's security footage, crystal clear, capturing Corinne's deliberate drop of the bills, her mocking smile and Alara's measured response. The sender's anonymity was a shield, but the act was a spark. Someone inside had taken a risk. Alara's mind raced, piecing together the next move. She replied with a single line. "Meet me. Coffee shop, 2 p.m., corner of 5th and Elm." She hit send, her pulse quickening, not with fear but with purpose. The coffee shop was a haven of warm wood and soft jazz, a stark contrast to the bank's sterile chill. Ilara sat in a corner booth, her satchel beside her, the white blouse and pink skirt drawing curious glances from patrons. She ignored them, her eyes scanning the door. At exactly 2 p.m., a young woman entered, her navy bank uniform slightly rumpled, her face a mix of determination and dread. Thea Marshall. Ilara recognized her from the teller line, the one who'd stood silent, watching. Thea's hands fidgeted, clutching a small purse, her eyes darting nervously before locking onto Alara's. "Ms. Rhodes." Thea's voice was soft, almost a whisper, as she slid into the booth. I sent the video." Her admission hung between them, fragile but heavy. Ilara leaned forward, her dark eyes warm but piercing. "Why?" she asked, not accusing, but seeking truth. Thea's fingers tightened around her purse. "Because it was wrong. What Corinne did. It wasn't just about you. It's how she treats anyone who doesn't fit her idea of important." I couldn't stay silent. Her voice trembled, but her gaze held steady, a spark of courage breaking through. Ilara studied her, seeing the weight of the choice Thea had made. "You risked a lot," she said softly. "Your job, your security. Why take that chance?" Thea swallowed, her eyes dropping to the table. "My mom always said doing right isn't easy. But it's worth it. I saw you. The way you handled it. You didn't yell, didn't break. It made me think I could be brave too." Ilara's chest tightened, not with anger, but with a flicker of pride. This young woman, barely out of her 20s, had seen what Ilara had fought to embody. "I'm offering you something," Ilara said, her voice firm but kind. "A position at my company. Not charity, opportunity. You've got integrity, and I need that." Thea's eyes widened, her breath catching. "Me? But I'm just—" Ilara cut her off, a gentle smile curving her lips. "You're not just anything. You acted when it mattered. That's rare." Thea's hands shook, tears brimming but not falling. "Thank you," she whispered, the words heavy with hope. Ilara slid the USB across the table, her fingers brushing Thea's. "This footage," she said, "it's not just evidence, it's leverage. I'm not here to destroy lives, but to fix what's broken. Will you trust me with it?" Thea nodded, her resolve hardening. "I do." The exchange was a pact, a quiet alliance forged in the shadow of the bank's arrogance. As Thea left, Ilara leaned back, her mind already mapping the next steps. Silas's call, Thea's courage, the video. They were pieces on a chessboard, and she was no longer the pawn Corinne had mistaken her for. The bank's rot ran deep, but Ilara saw a path to expose it, not with shouts, but with precision. Her phone buzzed again, Silas's name flashing. She answered, her voice steady. "Let's meet the investors tomorrow," she said. "This ends on our terms." The game was hers to play now. Ilara Rhodes stood at the head of the mahogany table, the city skyline sprawling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room. Her white blouse gleamed under the soft glow of recessed lights, her pastel pink mermaid skirt, a quiet statement of elegance, against the room's stark opulence. A loose strand of hair brushed her cheek, but her dark eyes were steady, commanding the attention of the 12 investors seated before her. Her low bun held firm, a symbol of her unshakable resolve. The satchel at her side, now resting on a chair, held the USB from Thea, a small device with the power to shift empires. Ilara wasn't here for vengeance. She was here to reshape the board, and every face in the room knew it. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that precedes a storm. Silas Kensington sat to her right, his pinstripe suit as sharp as his gaze. His nod was subtle, a signal of alliance forged in the bank's lobby. The other investors, men and women in tailored power suits, their watches glinting with wealth, leaned forward, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Ilara's voice when she spoke was clear, deliberate, a blade wrapped in velvet. "Thank you for coming on short notice," she began, her tone neither warm nor cold, but undeniably in control. "This isn't about a single incident. It's about risk. Risk to our investments, our reputation, and our principles." She clicked a remote, and a screen descended, casting a soft glow across the room. "The Ethelstan Commercial Bank is a key partner in our $2 billion deal," she continued, her eyes scanning the faces before her. "But their culture is a liability." Murmurs rippled through the room, a few investors exchanging glances. Ilara pressed play, and the security footage filled the screen. The room fell silent as Corinne's deliberate drop of the bills played out, her smirk unmistakable, followed by Ilara's measured response, kneeling, gathering, rising with unshakable dignity. Gasps punctuated the silence, a woman in a navy blazer covering her mouth. Silas's jaw tightened, his approval a quiet thunder. "This isn't just poor service," Ilara said, pausing the video on Corinne's mocking smile. "It's a symptom of a deeper rot. A bank that tolerates this behavior, disrespecting clients based on appearance, cannot be trusted with our capital." Her words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through the room. An older investor, his tie a splash of crimson, leaned forward. "You're saying one teller's actions indict the entire institution?" His tone was sharp, testing. Ilara's gaze didn't waver. "I'm saying one teller's actions, unchecked, reveal a culture that prioritizes arrogance over accountability. If they treat a client like this," she gestured to the screen, "imagine what they do with our investments behind closed doors." Silas leaned in, his voice low but cutting. "I've seen their numbers. Sloppy audits, unchecked staff behavior. This isn't isolated. It's systemic." His words carried weight, and the room shifted, skepticism giving way to concern. A younger investor, her glasses perched on a sharp nose, spoke up. "What's your proposal, Ms. Rhodes?" Ilara's lips curved slightly, not a smile but a signal of control. "We withdraw the deal, all $2 billion, effective immediately." The room erupted in murmurs, chairs creaking as bodies shifted. The crimson tie investor scoffed. "That's drastic. Ethelstan's been stable for decades." Ilara clicked the remote again, freezing the footage on her face. Calm, resolute, powerful. "Stability built on a cracked foundation is no stability at all," she said. "We deserve partners who align with our values. Competence, respect, integrity." Silas stood, his presence commanding. "I've already spoken to their board. They're scrambling, but it's too late. I'm with Rhodes." His endorsement was a hammer, silencing dissent. The woman in the navy blazer nodded slowly. "I've seen enough. I'm in." One by one, the investors voiced agreement, their voices a chorus of reluctant but decisive assent. Ilara's heart beat steadily, her face betraying nothing of the triumph surging within. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, surgical and precise. As the meeting adjourned, Silas lingered, his gray eyes meeting hers. "You played that like a master," he said, a rare hint of warmth in his voice. Ilara tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, her satchel now lighter in her hand. "It's not over," she replied. "The bank will feel this, but I'm not done building something better." Silas raised an eyebrow, intrigued, but said nothing as he left. Ilara stood alone in the emptying room, the city's pulse thrumming beyond the glass. The footage had done its job, but it was Thea's courage that had made it possible. Ilara's thoughts turned to the young teller, her risk, her integrity. This victory wasn't just hers. It belonged to those who dared to act, who chose right over easy. She slipped the USB into her satchel, her mind already turning to the next move. The bank's walls might not crumble today, but its foundation was shaking, and Ilara Rhodes was just getting started. The Ethelstan Commercial Bank's executive suite was a fortress of glass and steel, but today it trembled. The news of the $2 billion deal's withdrawal hit like a shockwave, reverberating through the mahogany-paneled boardroom where the bank's leadership sat, faces pale and drawn. The chairman, a gray-haired man with a penchant for silk ties, slammed his fist on the table, his voice a low growl. "How did this happen?" he demanded, his eyes darting to the branch manager, whose tailored suit seemed to shrink around him. The manager, Mr. Hargrove, mopped his brow, his voice unsteady. "It's Rhodes and Kensington. They pulled the deal after an incident." The room fell silent, the weight of their failure settling like dust. Far below in the marble lobby, the tellers worked on, oblivious to the storm brewing above, except for one. Corinne stood at her station, her name tag glinting under the chandelier's light, her pale fingers sorting checks with mechanical precision. Her smirk from yesterday was gone, replaced by a nervous twitch as whispers of trouble filtered through the staff. She'd heard rumors, investors pulling out, an investigation launched. But she pushed them aside. It was just one customer, one moment. Surely it couldn't unravel everything. She adjusted her blouse, mimicking the poise she'd mocked in Alara Rhodes, unaware that the ground beneath her was crumbling. In a cramped office upstairs, Hargrove faced the chairman's deputy, a woman with steel gray hair and a stare that could cut glass. "It was your branch, Hargrove," she said, her voice cold. "A teller, your teller, disrespected a client, Alara Rhodes. Do you know who she is?" Hargrove stammered, his face ashen. Tech executive, I think?" The deputy's lips thinned. "A billionaire CEO with the power to move markets, and you let a teller humiliate her." She slid a tablet across the desk. The security footage paused on Corinne's deliberate drop of the bills. Hargrove's eyes widened. "This is already circulating. We're hemorrhaging trust. Fix it or you're done." Corinne was summoned an hour later, her heels clicking uncertainly as she entered Hargrove's office. The air was thick, suffocating. "You're terminated," Hargrove said, his voice flat, avoiding her gaze. "Effective immediately. Clean out your desk." Corinne's jaw dropped, her blue eyes flashing with disbelief. "For what? Dropping some cash? It was an accident." Hargrove's face hardened. "It was deliberate, and it's cost us everything." Corinne's hands shook as she clutched her purse, her voice rising. "You can't do this. I've been here for years." But the door was already closing behind her, the sound final as a guillotine. By evening, the footage had escaped the bank's walls. Thea Marshall, her Navy uniform traded for a hoodie, sat in her small apartment, her laptop glowing. Her heart raced as she uploaded the video anonymously to a local news forum, her fingers trembling but resolute. She'd seen the bank's rot, Corinne's cruelty, the manager's indifference, and she couldn't stay silent. The upload was a spark, and the internet was dry tinder. Within hours, the video spread, shared across platforms, and dissected in comment threads. "Disgraceful," one user wrote. "That teller's done," said another. Alara's grace under fire became a symbol, her dark skin and elegant attire, white blouse, pastel pink skirt, low bun with loose strands, etched into the public's imagination. Corinne, now back in her apartment, scrolled through her phone, her face paling as notifications flooded in. She'd posted a tearful video, claiming she'd been unfairly targeted, a victim of an overreaction. But the security footage told a different story. Comments tore her apart. "Liar. Arrogant. You thought you could humiliate her." Her followers dwindled, her pleas drowned in a tide of public outrage. She sank onto her couch, her hands covering her face, the weight of her actions crashing down. She'd thought herself powerful, untouchable. Now she was a pariah, her name synonymous with hubris. Miles away, Alara sat in her office, the city's lights glittering beyond her window. Her satchel rested on her desk, the $20,000 still untouched, a promise to Mr. Lawrence's family she'd yet to fulfill. She hadn't seen the footages spread. Her focus was elsewhere, on the next steps. But her phone buzzed, a message from Silas. "Bank's in chaos. Good work." She allowed herself a small smile, her dark eyes reflecting the city's glow. This wasn't about destruction, it was about accountability. The bank's walls hadn't fallen, but their cracks were exposed, and she knew the tremors would continue. Thea, too, felt the shift. Her phone lit up with messages from coworkers, some angry, others awed. She'd lit the match, but the fire was its beast now. She thought of Ilara's offer, a job, a chance, and felt a flicker of hope. The bank's storm was far from over, but for the first time, Thea saw a path beyond its walls. For Alara, the game was moving to its final phase, one where justice wasn't just served, it was built. Alara Rhodes stood at a podium in a sleek community center, the room alive with murmurs and camera flashes. Her white blouse caught the soft stage lights, her pastel pink mermaid skirt swaying slightly as she adjusted her stance. A loose strand of hair brushed her cheek, but her dark eyes shone with a quiet fire, holding the gaze of the diverse crowd, students, families, local leaders. Her low bun was a crown of resolve, her dark skin radiant against the backdrop of a banner reading Laurent Scholarship Fund. The satchel, now empty of its $20,000 but heavy with purpose, rested backstage. This wasn't about the bank or Corinne's fall, it was about building something enduring, a legacy for Mr. Laurent, whose lessons had shaped her. Ilara's voice when she spoke was warm, steady, a beacon in the room's expectant hush. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone carrying the weight of conviction. "Today we honor a man who believed in second chances, in integrity, in rising above. The Laurent Scholarship Fund, seated with $5 million, will support young people who dare to do what's right, no matter the cost." The crowd erupted in applause, hands clapping like a summer storm. Ilara's lips curved slightly, not a smile of triumph, but of fulfillment. She thought of Mr. Laurent, his gentle wisdom, his unwavering faith in her, and felt his presence in this moment. The fund wasn't just money, it was a promise to lift others as he had lifted her. In the front row, Thea Marshall sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Gone was the Navy Bank uniform, replaced by a simple green dress that trembled with her nervous energy. Her eyes, wide and bright, were fixed on Alara, the woman who'd turned a moment of humiliation into a movement. Thea's heart pounded, the memory of uploading the footage still vivid, her fingers shaking, her screen glowing, the weight of her choice. She'd expected consequences, maybe punishment, but not this. An email from Ilara's team had arrived that morning, its words surreal. "You are the first recipient of the Laurent Scholarship, a full ride to pursue your dreams." Thea's throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. She, a teller who'd barely scraped by, was now a symbol of courage. Ilara's gaze found Thea's, a silent acknowledgement that warmed the room. "Our first recipient," Ilara continued, "acted with integrity when it was hardest. She chose truth over safety, and that's the kind of strength this fund will champion." The crowd turned, their eyes settling on Thea, who flushed under the attention. A young man in a hoodie clapped loudly, his grin infectious, and soon the room joined in, a wave of support that lifted Thea's chin. She stood, her legs unsteady, and waved shyly, her heart swelling with a hope she hadn't dared to dream. Backstage, Alara's assistant handed her a note, a letter from Mr. Laurent's family, their words simple but heavy with gratitude. "He would be so proud of you, Alara. This fund is his spirit alive." She folded it carefully, her fingers brushing the paper as if it were sacred. The $20,000 she'd fought for in the bank was still meant for them, a private gift to ease their struggles. But this fund, this moment, was for the world, a ripple from a single act of defiance that had grown into a tide. Ilara's chest ached, not with pain but with purpose. She'd turned Corinne's cruelty into something beautiful, something lasting. Miles away, the Ethelstan commercial bank stood quieter now, its marble lobby dimmed by scandal. The footage Thea leaked had spread like wildfire, branding the bank as a cautionary tale. Customers withdrew accounts, reporters circled, and the board scrambled to salvage their reputation. Corinne, now a ghost in her own life, scrolled through venomous comments on her phone, each one a reminder of her fall. The bank's chairman issued a public apology, promising reform, but the damage was done. Ilara's name was whispered in boardrooms, not as a victim, but as a force, one who'd expose their flaws with surgical precision. Thea stepped onto the stage at Ilara's gesture, her green dress catching the light. I don't know what to say," she stammered into the microphone, her voice soft but growing stronger. "I just did what felt right. Ms. Rhodes showed me that standing up matters." The crowd cheered again, their warmth wrapping around her like an embrace. Ilara placed a hand on Thea's shoulder, her touch steady, grounding. "You're the future," Ilara said softly. for Thea alone. Keep being brave. As the event ended, Alara lingered, shaking hands, her blouse and skirt a quiet elegance amid the crowd's energy. She thought of the bank, of Corinne's smirk, of the bills on the floor. Those moments were distant now, transformed into this, a fund, a future, a legacy. But one task remained, delivering the $20,000 to Mr. Laurent's family, closing the circle she'd begun. The city's lights glittered outside, and Alara felt a peace settling in her bones. The game wasn't over, but the board was hers. Ilara Rhodes's car wound through a quiet neighborhood, the city's hum fading into the rustle of trees and children's laughter. Her white blouse, now slightly creased from the day's wait, caught the golden light filtering through the windshield, her pastel pink mermaid skirt a soft contrast against the leather seat. A loose strand of hair grazed her cheek, but her dark eyes were calm, fixed on the modest house ahead, Mr. Laurent's home, a place of memories and meaning. Her satchel rested beside her, the $20,000 inside no longer just money, but a promise kept, a final act of gratitude for the man who'd seen her potential when she was just a spark. The bank, Corinne's smirk, the investor's decision, they were distant now, echoes of a battle won. This moment was hers, and it was sacred. She stepped out, the satchel slung over her shoulder, her low bun steady as she walked up the stone path. The house was small, its paint peeling, but its garden vibrant with roses. Mr. Laurent's touch, even in absence. The door opened before she could knock, revealing Mrs. Laurent, her face weathered but warm, her gray curls framing eyes that sparkled with recognition. "Alara," she said, her voice a melody of welcome. "Come in, child." Behind her, two teenagers, Laurent's grandchildren, peeked out, their smiles shy but genuine. Ilara's heart swelled, the weight of the bank's cold marble replaced by the warmth of this home. Inside, the living room was a tapestry of memories, photos of Mr. Laurent on the mantel, his laugh almost audible in the faded frames. Alara sat on a worn couch, the satchel at her feet. "I brought something," she said softly, sliding the envelope of cash across the coffee table. $20,000. For you, for the kids. He'd have wanted it. Mrs. Laurent's hand trembled as she touched the envelope, her eyes glistening. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "You've already done so much. The scholarship fund?" Ilara shook her head, a loose strand falling free. "The fund is for the world. This is for him. For you." The grandchildren, Maya and Jamal, sat closer now, their curiosity softening into awe. "Grandpa talked about you," Maya said, her voice tentative. "Said you'd change things." Alara's throat tightened, but her smile was steady. "He changed me first," she replied. They talked for hours, stories of Mr. Laurent weaving through the room, his late-night mentorship calls, his stubborn belief in second chances. Laughter mingled with tears, the envelope untouched, a silent testament to a bond beyond money. Ilara's blouse and skirt, so out of place in the bank's sterile lobby, felt right here, grounded in this space of love. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the garden. Ilara listened as Mrs. Laurent recounted a memory, Mr. Laurent teaching her to plant roses, his hands steady in the soil. "He'd be proud of you, Ilara," she said, her voice thick. "Not just for the fun, but for how you carry yourself, with grace." Ilara's dark eyes softened, a peace settling deep within her. She hadn't mentioned the bank, Corinne, or the footage that had unraveled an institution. This moment didn't need those shadows. It was about light, about keeping a promise. As she rose to leave, Jamal hugged her, his teenage awkwardness making her laugh. "You're like a superhero," he mumbled. Ilara's hand rested on his shoulder, her voice gentle. "No, just someone who learned from the best." Mrs. Laurent pressed her hands, her grip firm. "Keep shining, Ilara." The words carried her out the door, back to her car, where the satchel now felt lighter, its purpose fulfilled. Driving away, the neighborhood's warmth lingered in her chest. The city's skyline loomed ahead, its lights a constellation of ambition, but Ilara's mind was quiet. The Ethelstan commercial bank's fallout, Corinne's disgrace, the board's scrambling apologies, The public's outrage faded into the background. She'd won, not by shouting or destroying, but by building. The scholarship fund, Thea's future, this visit, they were her true victory, a legacy of respect forged from a moment of cruelty. Ilara's fingers brushed a loose strand of hair, her dark skin catching the fading light. She thought of Thea stepping into a new life and of Mr. Laurent's family, whose burdens eased. The bank's marble walls might stand, but their power was diminished, exposed as fragile. Ilara's heart was steady, her peace profound. She hadn't just honored a mentor, she'd raised a standard for herself, for Thea, for anyone who dared to choose dignity over pride. The road stretched ahead and she drove into it, carrying a legacy that would outlast any storm. Ilara Rhodes's journey, from a bank's cold marble to a family's warm embrace, leaves us with a question. What does dignity mean to you? Her story isn't just about triumph, it's about choosing grace over vengeance, building over breaking. What moved you most? Was it Ilara's quiet strength, Thea's courage, or the ripple of a single act? Drop your thoughts below. Share what this story sparked in you, wherever you're reading from, whenever you're here. Your voice matters, just as every choice does. Thank you for walking this path with us, for feeling the weight of each moment. Ilara's legacy lives in those who dare to rise, and we're grateful you joined her. Come back soon. There are more stories to unravel, more truths to chase. Until then, keep carrying your light.